Kill it! Welcome to hell, Blofeld.
He's back.
Good evening.
And we're back to what great movies are all about.
Hey, what the hell is this? Hey, listen, you can't do this to me. I've got friends in this town.
Outrageous, fun-making thrills.
I didn't know there was a pool down there.
He's back. The character who runs rings around his enemies in Diamonds Are Forever. Forever, And they're back. Some rare facets of female bondage.
Well, that's quite a nice little nothing you're almost wearing. I approve.
I don't dress for the hired help.
Starring Jill St. John, Charles Gray, and he's back as Blofeld, 007 style.
Good evening, 007.
From the Diamond Territory of South Africa.
Curious how everyone who touches those diamonds seems to die.
The canals of Amsterdam. To the gaming halls of Las Vegas.
Hi, I'm Plenty.
But of course you are.
Plenty O'Toole.
Named after your father, perhaps?
To the rocket sites of Nevada. Sean Connery, alias James Bond 007, is back in action.
Diamonds are forever, 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 forever.
And now for all you music lovers, it's time for your traffic report. There's a 6... What is it, Scooby? Can't you see I'm broadcasting here? Pile up on the tri-level, got you backed up all the way to the off-ramp. So, if you're traveling this morning, try to give yourself an extra day or two, folks. Hang on, folks. I've just been handed this important bulletin. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our regularly scheduled program to bring you this special report. Like live as it happens.
Hey, I'm Christy Lee from All Girls Garage and Barrett Jackson on Velocity, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned in to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. Run your computers and Google TanTalk1340.com, and you can see us live here in the studios in downtown Clearwater. Don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com, and where you can find out all about us. And if you've missed any of our past shows, go to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, the archive edition, or the history edition, or the
NostalgicRadioandCars.com really has everything you need to listen to the show.
Hey, good evening, Bobby. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Are you in the driver's seat this evening?
I am driving a radio station tonight, they might say.
You know how to drive a radio station?
Yeah.
Sometimes, occasionally.
All right. Well, we got an exciting show for you tonight. Now, ordinarily, on a day like this, we would be in Las Vegas at SEMA. However, due to the COVID stuff, SEMA is doing a special, and SEMA, by the way, is B2B, business to business, okay, for all of us in the automobile industry. SEMA is doing a special series and digital version, and it's called SEMA 360. So we have tonight a very special guest coming on our show, and he's a gentleman that is the MC for SEMA. He's also the host of SEMA 360. So if you're in the car business, you can actually go to SEMA 360 and you can Google and you can log in and find out all what's going on. So it's basically a digital version of it. So,
and we're going to hear a lot more about it because I think it's really cool.
It's a very good interview. Yes. Okay. So it's going to be a very good interview. Anyway, Bobby, how are we doing on time?
Hey, let's hear it.
Let's find out. Let's play a little
the
Henry
Outlaws
Paul
first, and then
play a little Outlaws with a little Henry Paul. He was our guest on our show last week, and then of course we play the James Bond trailer to Diamonds Are Forever, which was one of my favorite James Bond movies, besides Goldfinger, because they had featured a 1971 429 Cobra Jet Mach 1. In the meantime, everybody stay tuned to Nostalgic Radio Cars. Don't touch dial. Here's Little Outlaws.
Who we are, knowing where we've been and how we've come so far, from the colors that we fly down to all the reasons why, and take away who we know we are inside. It's about pride.
Okay, we're back, and you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and it's time to introduce our special guest for the evening. This gentleman is a SEMA regular, if you've ever gone to SEMA, which I tell you guys to go to every year because it needs to be on your bucket list. This gentleman is the MC for SEMA. He's also the SEMA 360 host this week and the owner of V8 Speed and Restoration out of Illinois. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this evening, Kevin Ostie. Kevin, how you doing?
I am doing great, Robert. Thank you so much for having me.
I almost got it right, didn't I? Anyway, let's talk about SEMA and SEMA 360. Ordinarily, we'd all be in Las Vegas this time of year. And unfortunately, due to the COVID thing, we are all on a video format these days, correct?
Yeah, and it's a shame because that event is something that is very meaningful to people as well as businesses. You know, it's definitely a trade show. Many people who are just getting exposed to the SEMA show, or people that are car enthusiasts and maybe not working in the industry, they look at it as a car show. And it's funny because it's not really a car show. It's really all about manufacturers that are presenting their latest, race products, speed products, appearance products, whatever. And they try to connect with buyers, then retail products to the consumers. So it's a long chain of events that happen with meetings, and it relies heavily on relationships. So year after year, this would be my 24th year in a row, you have this family reunion of your industry at the SEMA show. And to not have that really kind of lets the air out of you, because the environment, as you know, is very action-packed. It's very positive, and it feels good to be there. It's a place where your passion is first. We always joke about how if you went to a national global trade show for people who made dental equipment, do they have the same kind of fun that we have at the SEMA show about cars? I don't think so.
No.
But when they canceled the show, everybody knew the reasons why, and that you couldn't really fight it. And everybody also kind of knew that you can't just click on a screen and recapture that energy and that good feeling and that production level of seeing people in person and making deals and plans and all the rest of it. And there's a thing that I mention often. I call it a SEMA moment. And hopefully, if you go to the show, you have more than one. But there's always at least one. And it's, maybe you're walking through the hallway from a hotel to the convention center, or maybe you're talking to somebody at a trade show display or at a custom car, and you talk to somebody completely unexpected or meet somebody that you don't know, and the result of that conversation ends up changing your life somehow. It becomes an opportunity to, carry a product in your retail outlet, or it's a connection with somebody that, maybe your shop is building a car and you needed an answer from somebody that made a certain product, and all of a sudden they just appear there and you can get that. And how do you have SEMA moments online? So the SEMA 360 concept is really trying to capture some of the core DNA elements that make the show so compelling, and present them in a way that it's useful and valuable, and not just a wall of Zoom screens for a week, because frankly, that would suck. So I think today we are Tuesday, so we're in day 2 of the SEMA 360 experience, and I think people are starting to kind of get the handle of the interface of how to use SEMA 360 portal. And again, it's trade only, but I will love to share just a couple of insights about what I think is most valuable. And one of them is that if you are in the industry and say, for example, you're scrolling through the 2,200 new products that were just released on the 360 platform, and you see something really interesting. And again, maybe you're a retailer, maybe you're a shop like us, and you're going to incorporate this new gauge into your latest build. 360 lets you click and connect right away with the people that you need to talk to. So oftentimes manufacturers will have 5 or 6 different people available. They might have a sales guy, they might have a marketing person, they might have a general manager. You just kind of pick which one you think might be the right connection, and then boom, you get connected back, and you're linked right there. So my example is later this week, we're going to be producing a video on our V8 TV channel of cool new products that we saw at SEMA, but it's SEMA 360. And there's several companies we're going to feature that I've already had business relationships and friendships with, but there's a few that I didn't. And one in particular was a gauge manufacturer, like I was mentioning. And this allowed me to get right to the right person who, I told them we're going to be producing a video on, I would like to feature your gauges. Do you guys have any better pictures or more information? And my inbox got flooded, and he called me, and we started chatting. And next thing you know, we're setting up retail agreements in our shop to be a dealer for these guys just out of that. So that's pretty cool.
Let me ask you this. Now, how did the whole 360, because if I recall correctly, earlier in the year, there wasn't no mention. Nobody really knew for sure whether it was going to get canceled or not, because a lot of the stuff only in the early part of the year got canceled. A lot of the other shows in the fall were still on schedule. And then it was here sometime during the summers when they decided to change this. How long did it take them, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but how long did it take them to go from the point A to point B to even come up with the 360 concept? Which is pretty fascinating if you look at it. I mean, you guys, the website's great. And again, it's B2B. And I've had some of my customers ask me, well, can they somehow access this? And I said, I'm not 100% sure. Normally it's business to business only, but I don't know. I'll find out.
Right. Well, to answer that question real fast, always one of the goals of the SEMA show is to provide a connection between the media and the manufacturers, and the media then take it to the enthusiasts and users.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to build in that ability for the person that you talk to. If I'm just a regular guy building a 69 Chevelle in my garage and I want to learn about the latest stuff, how do I get it? And this is one of the reasons why the SEMA 360 platform contains all of these new product features, if you will, that contain a description, some photos, and some contact info and maybe pricing. And the media was all invited to participate in 360. So what I think they're starting to figure out is making the connection of saying, oh, I'm looking at this great new wheel. I can save that image and I can copy that text because it's already been released. And I can create a social post or a magazine story, or in my case, a video, and I can disseminate that information to the public. So the media guys are starting to figure out how to use that machine. But I really believe once they figure it out, that this is going to be a faster way to disseminate the information than the actual SEMA show. Because you didn't have to wait in line to get a good product shot. It's already provided. You didn't have to wait in line to talk to somebody about the product. The info's there. And like I said before, you can instantly connect with the manufacturer. The downside is, it might be the same picture that everybody else gets because it's the one that they released. But if you're smart, you can ask for different or special photography. And you can really personalize your media presentation. So that's the way the stuff's going to get out.
And then, of course, include a link to the website, which probably has some of the information as well.
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of times the media outlets, again, if they're going to be posting on social or their own website, that link might actually go to a retail establishment somewhere. It might be an Amazon link or Summit Racing or, whoever. So you can really, it would take you a full day of gathering those products, finding them, walking the 27 miles, of hallways to accumulate all that stuff per day, and then stay up all night trying to categorize it and author all that stuff. So in this case, this is a home run. Now, as far as when the trigger got pulled to officially go digital, it's hard to say the exact date. I'm not in the inner circle of the decision making there. I know they held out as long as they possibly could to have a show in reality as opposed to one that was virtual, because everybody appreciates that you cannot recreate those moments that I mentioned earlier. So that was good and bad. It was good because they tried so hard to work with Las Vegas. They were watching those COVID percentage numbers and really tracking the stuff and keeping their fingers crossed that if that safety threshold level dropped within a certain percentage, they could have the event. But eventually the city of Las Vegas, state of Nevada said, no, you can't. So it's my understanding that the architecture that SEMA 360 runs on is a pre-existing platform in a bare bones state. So they went to a professional group that does this and then customize the platform for your particular event. We'll call it an event. Even though it could be up all year, it just depends on, the financial metrics of all that. Because you got to consider SEMA didn't make any of the money on any of the advertising, any of the booth space, any of the other ancillary things this year because the show didn't happen. So this was out of pocket for them to launch this. And there is some advertising on the SEMA 360 platform. I don't think it was enough to cover the tab, but perhaps this is just year one. Maybe this happens again, because I would like this opportunity in conjunction with the real show, because I could spend half an hour, 45 minutes in the morning making digital connections with people that I saw on the show floor and getting those pictures and info, and that would be the super home run.
Well, you know what else? I mean, and I was just thinking, correct, this is B2B. And then if I remember correctly, on Friday afternoons, like around 12 or 1 o'clock, they used to open it up to the public. They just started doing that in the last couple of years. But if there was a way to, because I think what it does is it spawns more interest. Okay, so if you did the 360 and the average Joe, and I'm just thinking out loud, he was able to experience SEMA 360, these people might be able to reach out to people that are in the industry and then just get more support, because I'm still overwhelmed by the amount of people that are aware of SEMA as well as the people that are unaware of SEMA, but yet the people that are aware of SEMA that have never been there. And we have a local company here. It's called Forte's Classic Garage. Real good friends of mine, father, son team, two boys, dad. The dad and I go back 30, 40 years. We're both in the Shelby Mustangs. He still has his. I still have mine. And they build some really cool custom cars. In fact, I do appraisals from time to time. And one of the cars that they're doing right now, besides the 67 Shelbys, they're doing a Pro Touring 69 Camaro. And I said that this car is almost SEMA quality. You need to be more familiar, be involved with SEMA, because there are basically vendors there where you might be able to have your car displayed with their particular product on it. And that's what people overlook that, and be in one of their booths, which will get you exposure, notoriety, as well as experience SEMA, and as well as broadening the network, so to speak. I mean, that's just me thinking out loud. I mean, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's several valid points in your statement. I mean, obviously, from a manufacturer standpoint, you want to reach as many people as possible. I know at the in-person show, letting the general public in changes the tone, because the first time you walk into that show, you're blown away. It's too much to. A friend of mine said it best. He walked into the main hall and he said, "I need more eyes."
Oh, you do. That is true. That is true. That is true. It is overwhelming.
And if you approach that show as a car show, you are looking at the cars and you're maybe looking for posters and you're looking for collateral material and T-shirts and hats and stuff, as if you would at a, like the Muscle Car Corvette Nationals, for example, where it's all about the cars that are on display. The downside of that is those activities take time away from the exhibitors who are trying to get their business done. And if they can't get the business done, they won't be able to develop the products and cars won't be there.
No,
So-
I meant strictly from the 360 digital aspect
sure.
of it. I know they do that on like say Friday afternoon, they let some people in there and stuff, but I think it needs to remain B2B, just like you said, because then that keeps it professional and lets the serious people in there to do the serious business, to access the product information so that they can use those products out in the real world, sell them, and so on. And yeah, we're on the same page there.
To your point about 360, maybe there's a concept of SEMA 180.
Okay, there you go.
That isn't the full shebang with all of the business education seminars and the training, but it focuses more on the products. And the SEMA 360 is turning out to be one amazing online car show because there's over 330 featured vehicles online that you can check out photos and watch videos and read about the parts that have been used on and meet the builders. So, SEMA is still a car show, even though I said it's more of a business show. The cars are definitely the stars. So the challenge becomes some of the information doesn't cross over to the general public. So earlier when I was saying you could click the button and get the direct hotline to the president of company X, that's information you generally don't want out there. But maybe on a different level, maybe at SEMA 180,
There you go.
Here's our PR contact and here are products that are currently available, because a lot of the stuff you see is not yet available.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be fielding a whole bunch of calls of where can I get this latest four-wheel drive accessory when it's not even going to be out for 6 months. So there's those considerations. But I think it would be great to have general public access to a degree.
But I agree with you 100%. When you mentioned camaraderie, when you mentioned family reunion, I know I was standing someplace at SEMA a couple of years ago, and somebody asked me. I was just involved in a little interview with somebody, and that was exactly what I said. I said, this is like a family reunion. I mean, most of your major events that you do go to is kind of like a following, but SEMA truly is. I mean, there's a camaraderie, there's a family spirit there. Cammie Edelbrock and I go way back. I see her there every year. I see, Steve Strope's a good friend of mine. I see Steve every year. The names are endless, but the people that you meet there, I met Bobby Alloway there for the first time. He had a really cool Porsche there a couple of years ago. Art Morrison, we had him on the show. I met him there a few years ago. The guys from Holly, just the names and the people are endless. Billy Gibbons, people like that. And but it's the people as well as the cars and the products. I mean, it's just it's the total package. I can't explain it. I mean, you go there every year. I go there every year, and every year I'm equally as amazed. I mean, I get giddy knowing that I'm going to go there and I'm going to be there, because once you're there, it's like, wow, it's incredible show.
Yeah. Well, it's fuel for the soul.
Yes.
Because all those things you talked about happen, but everybody there is on the same page. You're all there because you're passionate about cars, trucks, things with wheels, whatever it is. And everybody's positive, because they're all bringing out new things. Most people have prepared for months to get there, either the hottest, custom car or a giant new trade show display. So you got that relief that the show's finally on. And then to see the people, it just fuels all that stuff that we thrive on. And then when you leave, you've got this kind of release. And in my case, I live in the Midwest and in the southern part of Illinois, where I always joke, I leave to go to SEMA in the fall and I come back and it looks like winter. So skies are gray, all the leaves are down, and it's like, oh man, really? But without that big last charge, I wouldn't have the good winter experience, because I'd be too bummed out. So there's definitely a psychological aspect of what not having that show is doing to people.
Well, the other thing too, as you mentioned, and we've had John Warniak on our show. Doug Evans has been on my show.
Yep.
Corky Coker. These are people that have all been involved with SEMA, on the board side, so to speak, but also the educational things. You spoke about that for a few minutes. The seminars. I truly enjoy the seminars. I mean, there's people there talking about builders, people talking about marketing, people talking about a specific product. The hot rod seminar that they have, with the builders and stuff. Those are really, truly inspiring and educational and fun events. I mean, and that's part of the show. That's all part of SEMA. So and then the build-offs. It's not just we're selling a product. It's the total package. And that's why I think SEMA is just such an amazing event.
It is. And to keep the perspective, SEMA is an association.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really make a product,
Yes.
and they don't sell stuff. They've created events, and the SEMA show is not what SEMA does all year. It's the biggest event of the organization. But the organization, plain and simple, is there to help automotive businesses survive and thrive and grow. So the educational seminars and the training sessions and stuff that you can do at the show are great on several levels. Yes, the content is, can be very beneficial. Meeting the presenter can be very beneficial. There's a chance to start a relationship there. And then meeting the other people in the room that you're experiencing that seminar with, because you might find competitors or other people that you might do business with, all by sharing that experience. So there's so many things that you can't really put your thumb on, about what the most important element of SEMA is. But it really gives you, the more you put into it and the more time you take to absorb what's going on and offer your time and be involved, it pays off tremendous dividends.
You mentioned earlier about, the other things that SEMA does. SEMA's, I don't want to call them lobbyists, but basically they do. They go out and lobby for the automobile industry. There was one about the licensing of aftermarket, or, I think if I remember correctly, home built vehicles, custom built cars and stuff like that. There was a thing about that.
RPM Act was another one.
Yeah. And then the attorney for SEMA, who lives in Florida, by the way, and I can't remember his name right now, it escapes me, but he was on our show a few years ago, and we talked a little bit about that, some of the programs, some of the stuff that goes on, that, the behind the scenes stuff that the SEMA organization does, that basically supports our industry in general as a whole. And that's why it's just, like you said, it's just a total package, everything that SEMA does and everything that SEMA stands for. And it's a great organization to be a member of.
It is. And the interesting thing is, to go to the show, you have to be in the automotive industry, but you don't have to be a member of SEMA. They recruit people to be members, and I strongly suggest everybody join, because if you join, you can be part of a council or a committee that maybe represents your particular niche in the industry. So maybe it's the wheel and tire industry, or the off-road guys, or the hot rod industry alliance, or the restoration alliance, so that you can connect and help when things come up legally that might negatively affect you. And a great example of that is the state of California always seems to be trying to put a mute button on performance exhaust systems. Over and over again, legislation comes up to try to make sure that every car is silent. And, everything's got its place, but I'm not about the government restricting my freedom to modify the vehicle to get better performance or whatever, and definitely not to restrict my freedom to sell those products. And especially when the exhaust companies are already tasked with following the emissions laws and safety and all the rest. So they got to jump that hurdle, which I'm totally down for. I mean, we do need our regulations where we need them, but when they start to get a little bit on the fringe, and it's a battle that one manufacturer can't fight on their own, that's when SEMA comes together and brings the collective strength of the organization to help change some of those radical laws that they try to propose.
Well, I'm thankful for SEMA. I know a whole bunch of other guys are too. So, and I know you are, because you're in the industry as well. So speaking of which, let's segue into what V8 Speed and Restoration does.
Wow, sure. We run a 3-ring circuit, the best way.
Okay.
So we produce video and television. Our half-hour show is called V8 TV. It's still airing on over-the-air channels, and we're getting ready to send some new episodes out pretty soon. Of course, everything's on YouTube, too. You just go to our V8 TV channel. And the content for our show comes right from our shop. So we have 4 buildings with 19 people on staff. I think we've got 42 cars in the shop right now from 6 different countries, where we are doing everything from stock restorations to, concours, pro touring cars, custom stuff, trucks, a lot of late model engine swaps into muscle cars. You name it, basically, we can do it here. The only thing we don't do in-house is engine machine work, but we do all of our own interior work, our metal fabrication, body paint, mechanical assembly, chassis, EFI tuning. And, again, back to SEMA, a lot of our team attends that show every year, and so our guys are factory-trained Holley tuners and factory-trained with HP tuners and that kind of stuff. And we're fortunate that people began to watch our show, and they would call up and they'd say, hey, I want you to build me a car. So over the years, we've been in business about 17 years now, and we've been going strong through the COVID scenario. In fact, an interesting stat is in all this time, we've never had to lay somebody off for lack of work. We are so fortunate that people see what we do through the videos all over the world, and they're comfortable with the way we do it, and they like the work, and they contact us, and they'll ship us cars, from anywhere, and we'll do the work and ship them back out. And it's just a never-ending process. So it has kind of a circus feel in many ways. We also produce a V8 Radio podcast, which you can find at v8radio.com, which is kind of what you and I are doing right now. Car guys just kind of chatting.
Uh-huh.
And then we do another show called Muscle Car of the Week, which you'll find at musclecaroftheweek.com, which is a series of features of very high-end muscle cars that have primarily come from a private collection called the Brothers Collection. And we're talking Hemi Cuda convertibles, and these guys own 4 of the 8 produced 69 Trans Am convertibles.
Oh, wow.
It's an amazing collection. And earlier I mentioned that Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals show in Chicago, which is an indoor car show event. As it sounds, it's muscle cars and Corvettes, creme of the creme type event. Well, that show got canceled this year, and we're normally there. I do hosting duties, and we shoot video the whole event. But nobody wanted to cancel the show, so kind of taking the nod from SEMA, we worked with the organizers of the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals to create a video presentation, which in the old days we just called them TV shows, Yeah. So we're going to be producing about an hour and a half long special, but it's going to be shot at the brand new, not yet open museum that houses the Brothers Collection, where we've shot our Muscle Car of the Week show over the years.
Oh, wow. And
that museum has, the collection owners themselves have been big sponsors of the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, and they've sent cars there every year. So all the connections were already in place. It just took me to suggest the opportunity, and thankfully everybody went for it. So this week, every day in the afternoon, I'm shooting the daily preview of what's going to happen tomorrow on SEMA 360, and I'm doing that in our own shop. And then at the end of the week, fly out to the Pacific Northwest and spend all next week shooting that Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals event that we're creating. We're creating an event. And that will go live on November 21st at 7:30 p.m. Central. So you'll be able to watch that. So you asked what we do at the shop. We do everything for cars at the shop and a whole bunch of other stuff.
I was going to ask you, since you've been in this business for so long and you're kind of a specialist and you got a restoration shop now, have you actually yourself, your team, put together a car that's been displayed at SEMA?
10, I think.
10 of them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We've had it displayed in the MagnaFlow booth, Rocket Racing Wheels, Comp Cams was a great one. We actually restored the 40th anniversary 69 Camaro that's owned by Comp Cams. We built that car for those guys. We did a Camaro for Royal Purple Synthetic Oil. We've had a car featured in Classic Industries and Toyo Tires, and kind of all around. So yeah, so I thoroughly know and respect those who do the SEMA thrash to get the car built.
So take us through the process. What exactly is involved? Because for my listeners now, because I talk about this on the show every once in a while. I've even said it's some of the guys locally that do some, and there are a few. This is the thing that amazed me about SEMA the last couple of years that I've been there, is the amount of guys under 30 years of age that come up with some really cool, innovative stuff. Now, Steve Strope, Troy, Chip, people like that, Dave Kendig, everybody knows these guys. But there's these guys that nobody's ever heard of them, but they have unbelievable talent. And every once in a while you bump it, just like you're talking about, that guy that changes your life. You meet somebody and you see a car there and you go, wow. And then you meet this guy that's so obscure and he builds this unbelievable car. And he's like, he can't believe it. He's got to pinch himself. My car's here at SEMA. Yeah. Unbelievable. So take us through the process. If you were getting ready to do your car, how do you go about doing that? And to what level?
Well, you hit another really interesting point that needs to be talked about, and that is that we need to energize the next generations of this hobby. So SEMA put a lot of effort into the Battle of the Builders program and the Young Guns program, which targets the younger builders and gives them an opportunity in a place where they can take a car that they've built and sign up to be part of that competition. And last year, before the COVID thing, they put together a really nice network where you could sign up at a handful of local events all over the country, and SEMA would send judges out, and the local car show people would work with them, and you'd have local winners. And then the local winners would get funneled into a big pool to find the nationals that were going to go to the show. So that's one way. But another way to get a car to be on display at the SEMA show is the first thing you have to do is deliver on your promise. And that's the biggest challenge, because we've all seen it a million times. A guy comes up with a rendering or a drawing and he says, yeah, I'm building this great, Ford Bronco, and it's going to have this motor and these wheels and this color. And you just kind of look at him and say, well, it's a cool truck, but where is it? Oh, I don't have it yet. Or it's in a million pieces. And the tough part is getting one finished without additional support. But if you don't have anything, you're kind of blended in with everybody else that has a dream, but not a thing. So if you have vehicles that you've already built, make sure you get great photography of them and let the manufacturers know that their parts are on that car. So even if it was something that's been done for 2 years and you don't want that car, we'll call it a Chevelle. You don't want your Chevelle to go to SEMA because you want to build the world's most ultimate Corvair, whatever. Go to the people that are on the Chevelle and let them know, hey, Bear Brakes, I used your brakes on my Chevelle. I just wanted you to know that the car got finished, that they're displayed in a way that makes you guys look great. They fit the market segment. And in the future, if I build another car, can we talk about maybe you helping us with a place to display it at the SEMA show? Because most trade show displays not only have the opportunity, if they're big enough, to host a car on site, but they might have an access pass to be able to have another car maybe out in front or in a different lot or in a hallway somewhere. Those they just call general feature vehicles. And if you start these relationships with manufacturers and just keep them in the loop and just let them know that, hey, this is my next car. And I was working with Magnuson Superchargers, and I worked with ARP Hardware, and I worked with Forge Line Wheels, and this is what I came up with, and I just wanted you to know that this is what I like to do. What you're doing is legitimizing yourself. You're not just speaking fantasy land. You're telling them, we know how to do this, and we get it done. And when the time comes that you've got an idea that it could be a SEMA car, candidate, you go back to all those companies and say, hey, remember me? I'm the guy that built this car, and I was just sending you the postcards. Well, I got a new one, and maybe you can help me out getting it through the door, because that's really the main way to get through the door is using a manufacturer's space opportunity, because they're looking for top-notch cars to show off their parts, And it's funny, as you talk about it, you're mentioning from the standpoint of how it's every builder's dream to have a car at SEMA. Well, I know manufacturers who end up in a pinch and they're like, look, we're 3 weeks out and I don't have a car because 2 of them fell through. The guy didn't get it done. It's still at the paint shop, whatever. So they need to have a little library of builders or cars that they know that they can say, hey, you know what? Dave Johnson in, Sioux Falls, South Dakota has been sending me photos and stuff. We've been talking to him for years. Maybe he's got one. And then you network yourself to get in. And the one thing you'll notice I didn't say is you're not hitting them up for free product and you're not asking for sponsorships. And today, because of social media and Instagram, and everybody thinks that if they take a picture of their car, they're all of a sudden entitled to some sponsorship because they have some people that saw it. And that's not what a sponsorship is. A sponsorship is a way for a manufacturer to sell more product and pay you either through parts or money because whatever you're doing is selling them more product. You are technically a salesperson for that company. So if you don't carry yourself in a professional manner, if you are not bringing your car to A-list events, if you're not doing top quality work, and if you're not portraying the company in a positive light, not being a good salesperson, you're not entitled to the sponsorship. You're not entitled to free parts because you're going to get the free stuff and the manufacturer gets nothing. But if you start the opposite way and say, I want to share with you what I've done, and maybe someday we can work together, that's how it comes around.
That's the best advice. And I'm glad you said that because after this show, I'm going to send out a whole ton of emails to all these people that I know and say, you need to listen to the show because we had the spokesperson, the SEMA MC on our show, and you could hear it through his words of wisdom on how you need to go about doing it. Do the car first. Get the car exposed. In fact, Rick Schmidt at National Parts Depot is a real good friend of mine. Yeah. And Rick and I were talking because I said something to him a long time ago, about we wanted to build, and I still haven't done it yet, but I have it. I have an old vintage 66 Mustang, and we were going to build a complete original resto 66 Mustang, 65 Mustang Gasser. Now, the interesting thing about this car is this car was butchered back in the day. It is 100% period correct. I have 100% period correct panels for the car, interior, all kinds of parts for that car that make this car all genuine period correct. But I wanted to use some new components on the car, and I wanted to display it. So we got to talk a little bit about, Mustang parts because I specialize in Mustangs, and I said something to him about it. He says, well, what you really need to do first, Robert, is build the car and then get the car to have some exposure. Once the car gets some exposure, then send it to people like me at National Parts Depot because I specialize in Mustang. I'll do a little PR for the car, get the car to some other major events around the country a little bit, or at least the southeast part of the United States where we're at because we're based out of Florida. And you'll never know where it'll go from there. So that what I'm telling you is what Rick told me, which concurs exactly with what you're saying.
Well, I'm glad because this is many years of going through this industry and seeing things, and it transcends in other industries too. Another one that's tough to break into is television, and people come to producers all the time and say, I've got this great idea for a movie or a film or a TV show, but they've never made anything. They don't understand the process, and they can't bring something to the table outside of an idea. And if you don't have skin in the game, you're not a valid contender. Now, if you come and say, look, I've shot these 25 videos, I've taken them to film festivals, I've won these awards, and now I want to do something bigger, then they go, oh, yeah, right on. This is for real. And it's the same in the car world. So I'm glad that those thoughts echoed his because those guys are really on top of their game at National Parts Depot. We buy from them a lot.
Let me ask you this too. Let's talk a little bit about getting the next generation, because I touched on, these kids who are 30 years old, but that have some of these kids just have amazing talent. I mean, it just surprises me. But we've got McPherson College out there now. Unfortunately, Jesse's no longer with us, but I know Jesse went there. And we had her on the show a few years ago. And but there's a lot of colleges out there, or maybe she went to Wyotech. I think that's Wyotech. She went to Wyotech, right? So you got Wyotech out there, you got McPherson out there. What other schools are out there? If somebody really wants to get into this, because they don't teach this vocation in school anymore, and I think it should be. In fact, the very first video you had, the opening segment for SEMA 360 was with Mike Rowe and Tanner Faust. Tanner's been on our show. Mike, we're still trying to get on our show, and he's a huge proponent of vocation. And you see these guys out there that are, let's just say carpenters, plumbers, electricians. These guys are making a good living. They're not consumed with the idea I have to have a college degree. These guys understand that there's trades out there that pay well, do well, and if you're and you can be enthusiastic, and then that trade that you have right there, let's say plumber, electrician, carpenter, whatever, that can actually transcend into the automotive industry as your hobby, and then eventually evolve into something bigger and better. But it's the same thing with the school thing. So we need to, if there's no vocation, no automotive, no electronics, no carpentry or shop or whatever in schools, what other colleges out there besides those two that I mentioned are out there that people can find out more about and possibly attend?
There are quite a few. I know locally there's a privately owned school called Rankin Tech, and they offer programs in HVAC and in carpentry and building, construction, also IT, and then they have a collision refinish program, auto mechanics, and they also have a subset that is restoration, which is pretty cool. And they, being a privately held school, they don't have to answer to shareholders, which tend to sometimes dictate the curriculum, about what's popular. So I don't think there's a problem with the schools. I think we're starting to turn it around a little bit. Maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago, a blue collar was a bad word. All these parents taught their kids to be managers, white collar workers, push a pencil, work smarter, not harder. And what we found is this sort of shaming of people that actually use their hands for a living, but recently I think we've been seeing a shift to where Mike Rowe, you mentioned, part of his philosophy is don't do your dream job, do any job that you can get, and it might turn into satisfying your dream. Because somebody who cleans a sewer for a living, it sounds terrible, but the actual process might be very gratifying and very rewarding when you consider how important that job really is. And you're right, the trades will never not be in demand. These people have job security forever. I know trying to have some work done on our facility during the COVID time, we were delayed for months just because everybody was so busy, right? So there's... I would say jump online. The SEMA website does have educational resources and scholarship opportunities available for students that are looking to get involved. And they've got lists of schools that, you could find that are close to you. But now I think getting that 30 and younger and 20 and younger and even little kids involved. Chris Kirsting, who's the CEO of SEMA, a couple years ago, made a comment during the SEMA banquet where he said, we all had that singular experience. Either it was going fast for the first time in a car or climbing a rock pile in a Jeep or whatever it was, that sense of motion that changed our lives. It hooked us. It was exciting, made us feel good. And at that young age, that leaves a mark. And every time you do that activity, it tickles your reward center and it releases positive chemicals in your body and you feel good about it. So the earlier you can get kids to experience stuff in the automotive arena, the better. And got to be careful because, we mentioned car shows. Today, what do you see? You see, here's a beautiful cars and coffee event, right? And you'll see a father walking with a young kid. And what do? They're pulling the kid away from the car and they're saying, don't touch that. And, leave that alone. Well, that kid really had a bunch of negative experiences that day too, and I'm not saying let the kid crawl over the car, but you got to manage those properly because now he's associating that shiny car with something that he's not supposed to touch, that got his arm yanked away. Why would he gravitate to that? He liked it and then it got negated. So I think the more we can expose the youth to how cool it is to go fast and safely race and build something that actually runs using your own two hands, that has a built-in sense of gratification. We just need the exposure. They need to have more experiences doing it. So if I would suggest to anybody listening, you've got kids in the neighborhood and you're a gearhead, meet the kids' parents and ask them, is it okay if I bring my 62 Galaxy over one Saturday and, mom and dad and your two kids and myself can go around the block? I'm not trying to be weird, or a bad neighbor, but what I want to do is meet my neighbors and I'll be known as the guy with the cool car, and I'll answer the questions of the kids and provide a positive experience that's centered around the family. And I'll tell you what, those kids will never, ever, ever forget it. And this is how you start to get them involved.
Super. Well, Kevin, on that note, we're up against the clock. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to thank you very much for coming on the show this evening. Go ahead and give out the information for SEMA 360 real quick for us.
Sure. You can go to SEMA360.com. It's that simple. And if you're in the industry, you can sign up and go check it out.
Sounds good. Hey, I want to thank my very special guest, Kevin Ostie from SEMA MC, SEMA 360, and also the owner of V8 Speed and Restoration. Kevin, I will probably see you at some of the car shows in the future. In the meantime, again, I want to thank you very much for hanging out with us here at Nostalgia Good in Cars. Okay, again, listeners, that was a great interview with our good friend there, Kevin Ostie. And in the meantime, I want to tell everybody to tune in every week, 7 to 8 p.m., Ten Talk Radio Network. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
She get high. WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyr Hills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Peter King in Orlando. The polls are now closed here in Florida and in more than a dozen other states, including battlegrounds Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, and the District of Columbia. CBS News projects when all the votes are tallied, Joe Biden will win the state of Vermont, Donald Trump will win Indiana, and we have these just in, so bear with me. Alabama leading Trump, Connecticut leading Biden, Delaware, Biden wins, Florida, no surprise, a toss-up. Illinois is leaning toward Biden, Maine leaning toward Biden, Maryland likely toward Biden, Massachusetts a Biden win. These are polls states that have just closed. Mississippi likely to go Trump, Missouri leaning Trump, New Hampshire leaning Biden, New Jersey leaning Biden, Oklahoma a Trump win, a toss-up for battleground Pennsylvania, Rhode Island leading Biden, Tennessee leaning Trump, and the District of Columbia is a win for Biden. Again, these are CBS News estimates for when all those votes are counted. Now, Joe Biden is in Wilmington, Delaware tonight. He spent part of the day in Pennsylvania. Here's CBS's Ed O'Keefe.
My name is Joe Biden. Biden visited his boyhood home and signed one of the walls from this house to the White House with the grace of God. Later in Philadelphia, Biden attacked the president one last time from the campaign trail.
He thinks that he can decide who gets to vote. Well, guess what? The people are going to decide who gets to be president.
The president is at the White House right now. So's correspondent Paula Reed.
After barnstorming the country in the last